I slapped a human prisoner to humiliate her. 20 seconds later she had me face down in cafeteria filth, begging for backup. Look, I am not saying I was the toughest enforcer on Station Vermilion 7, but I was definitely in the top 3. My name is Kriegvar, and before you ask, yes, that apostrophe is necessary, thank you very much. I had been working detention for about 6 cycles, which in your Earth time is roughly 4 years, give or take a few months depending on whose calendar we are using. The point is, I knew my job. I knew it well. Very well, actually. The Thexian Concordat does not just hand out enforcer positions to anyone with 4 limbs and a bad attitude. No, no, no. We have standards. We have protocols. We have a reputation to maintain across 17 star systems, and I, Kriegvar of the Third Talon, was a fine example of everything a detention enforcer should be. Strong, intimidating, efficient, and absolutely not someone you wanted to cross during meal distribution hours. Station Vermilion 7 was not exactly the crown jewel of the Concordat's infrastructure. If I am being honest, it was a mid-level detention facility, the kind of place where they sent petty smugglers, tax evaders, unlicensed cargo haulers, and the occasional idiot who thought forging travel documents was a good idea. We were not housing dangerous warlords or system-threatening criminals. Most of our guests, and I use that term loosely, were just stupid. Breathtakingly, monumentally stupid. The facility itself was shaped like a massive cylinder, rotating slowly to generate artificial gravity. Clever design, really. The detention cells lined the outer ring, while the common areas, cafeteria, and administrative offices occupied the inner sections. Gray walls, gray floors, gray ceilings. Whoever designed this place clearly had a deep personal relationship with the color gray. Thrilling stuff. Truly. My job was simple. Keep the inmates in line. Distribute meals. Prevent fights. File reports. Occasionally escort someone to interrogation or processing. It was not glamorous, but it paid well and I got to feel important. What more could a mid-level enforcer want? Then she arrived. Kira Torres. Human. Female. Approximately 1.6 meters tall, which for her species was apparently average. Brown skin, dark hair pulled back in some sort of knot situation, and eyes that looked almost black in the station's artificial lighting. She was small, incredibly, almost comically small compared to most of the species we housed here. I am 2.3 meters tall for reference. My arm span alone was wider than she was tall. The intake officer, a Belvarin named Thas, brought her through during second shift. I was reviewing security feeds in the monitor room when I saw her shuffling down the corridor in standard-issue detention wear. Those ugly gray jumpsuits we made everyone wear. No personal effects, no baggage, just her and that neutral expression on her face, like she was waiting for public transport rather than being processed into a Concordat detention facility. Thos handed me her file. I glanced at it. Unauthorized presence in Concordat space. Falsified transit credentials. Unregistered vessel. The usual nonsense we saw from independent operators who thought the rules did not apply to them. Her ship had been impounded, and she was looking at 60 cycles minimum before her case even went before a magistrate. Standard stuff. Boring stuff. I looked at her through the observation window. She was staring straight ahead, not fidgeting, not looking around nervously like most new arrivals did. Humans were relatively new to the galactic community, only about 40 cycles since first contact. Most species still considered them curiosities. Soft, fleshy things from a heavy gravity world that somehow managed to build faster than light engines before they had unified their own planetary government. Weird priorities, if you ask me. I had processed maybe a dozen humans before Kira. They were always polite, always cooperative, always terrified. Humans had a reputation for being anxious in detention settings. They sweated a lot, they talked too much, they asked too many questions. They were, and I say this with all due respect, kind of pathetic. So naturally I assumed Kira Torres would be the same. I activated the intercom. Inmate Torres, you will be assigned to Cell Block 7, Unit 42. You will follow all station regulations. You will obey all enforcer commands. You will not cause problems. Do you understand? She looked directly at the camera. Her expression had not changed at all. Sure. Sure. That was it. Not yes sir or I understand or please do not hurt me. Just sure. Like I had asked her if she wanted an extra ration pack. I should have paid attention to that, I really should have. But I did not, because in my professional opinion, shaped by cycles of experience and countless processed inmates, Kira Torres was just another small, weak human who would keep her head down, serve her time quietly, and avoid any trouble. She would be easy to manage. Forgettable even. I assigned her to cell block 7 and went back to my monitor feeds. That was my first mistake. My second mistake was thinking that just because something looks harmless, it actually is harmless. But we will get to that part soon enough. Oh yes, we will definitely get to that part. Station Vermilion 7 ran on a strict schedule, because apparently the Concordat believed that rigid routine built character or prevented riots or something equally philosophical. Wake cycle at 0600 hours, meal distribution at 0700, 1300 hound, recreation period from 1400 to 1600 hours, lights out at 2200 hours. Every single day, the same, exact thing. Kira Torres adapted to the routine within 2 days, which was actually impressive for a human. Most of them spent at least a week bumping into walls and complaining about the food. But not her. She woke on time, ate her meals without comment, spent recreation period doing these weird bodyweight exercises in the corner of the common area, and went back to her cell without causing any fuss. It annoyed me. I cannot fully explain why, but it did. Maybe it was the way she never made eye contact, but somehow always seemed aware of exactly where everyone was. Maybe it was how she never asked questions, never requested anything, never showed even the slightest bit of fear or uncertainty. She was too calm, too controlled. It felt like disrespect, honestly. So I started testing her. Little things, you understand. Professional boundary setting. During meal distribution, I would accidentally give her smaller portions. She never complained, just took her tray and sat down. I would schedule surprise cell inspections during her rest period, making her stand in the corridor while I deliberately took my time examining her extremely empty cell. She would stand there, hands behind her back, staring at the wall, waiting. Nothing. No reaction, no emotion, no respect for my authority. By the 5th day, I started adding verbal reminders of her position here. Move faster, human. You are holding up the line, inmate. Is there a problem with your hearing, Torres, or are you just stupid? She would comply immediately, but there was something in her eyes. Not fear, not even anger. Really. It was more like she was filing information away for later use. Calculating. I did not like it. Vex, one of the Krathari guards who worked 3rd shift, pulled me aside on day 7. The Krathari are these insect-looking species with compound eyes and too many joints in their limbs. Vex was decent enough. For a bug. Kriegvar, maybe ease up on the human female. Yes. I laughed. Actually laughed. Why? Is she going to cry? File a complaint? Vex's antennae twitched in that way they do when they are nervous. Humans are from a Class 12 death world. Their baseline physical capabilities are significantly above average for their size category. I have read the species briefings. Perhaps it is wise to maintain professional distance. Yes, professional distance. From a human barely tall enough to reach my chest. Vex, I appreciate your concern, but I have been doing this job for 6 cycles. I think I can handle one small human female. He clicked his mandibles together, which is basically a Krathari shrug, and walked away. Should have listened to him. Adding that to my growing list of mistakes. By day 9 I was actively looking for reasons to interact with Kira Torres. It had become a game, sort of. A test of wills. She wanted to pretend she was unbothered. Fine. I would bother her until she cracked. Then came day 10. Cafeteria. Midday meal distribution. The common area was packed, maybe 60 inmates spread across the tables, all different species, all eating their nutritionally balanced, but aggressively flavorless food. I was supervising, walking the perimeter, projecting authority. Kira was sitting alone at a corner table, eating slowly, methodically, always alone. Always quiet. Always watching. I walked over, stood directly beside her table, well within her personal space. Inmate Torres, you are sitting in a restricted zone. She looked up at me, chewed, swallowed. There are no restricted zones in the cafeteria during meal hours. It says so in Section 7 of the detention regulations. Oh, she wanted to quote regulations at me. At me? Are you arguing with an enforcer? Inmate? No, I am correcting your mistake. The cafeteria got very quiet. Several inmates turned to watch. This was entertainment now. My crest flared, which is a Thexian threat display. Stand up. She stood, slowly, still holding her meal tray, still completely calm. You think you are clever. You think because you memorized some regulations that you can disrespect me. I have not disrespected you. I have simply stated a fact. My hand moved before my brain could stop it. Not a punch, just a slap. Open palm. Meant to humiliate, not injure. Just enough to remind her exactly who was in charge here. My hand connected with her face. Her head snapped to the side. And that, as they say, is when everything went sideways. The slap made a satisfying sound. I will admit that. A sharp crack that echoed nicely in the suddenly silent cafeteria. My palm stung a bit, which surprised me, because hitting something that small should not have generated that much resistance. Her skin was harder than it looked, denser somehow. But whatever. The point was made. I expected tears. Maybe some begging. Perhaps she would fall down, clutch her face, and finally show some appropriate fear. That is what the other humans had done. That is what soft species do when you remind them of the natural order of things. Kira's head had snapped to the side from the impact, her dark hair coming loose from that knot thing. For a moment, maybe half a second, she just stayed like that, facing away, completely still. Then she turned her head back toward me, slowly, deliberately, and she smiled. Not a nice smile. Not friendly. It was the kind of smile you see on a predator that just realized dinner is served. Her lip was bleeding a little, a thin line of red running down to her chin, and she did not even bother to wipe it away. Okay, she said quietly. Just that. Okay. Her meal tray clattered to the floor. I had maybe 1 full second to process that sound before she moved. Here is the thing about humans that apparently nobody bothered to mention in the species briefings. I definitely did not read thoroughly enough. They are fast. Not like Krathari fast, or Vixilian fast, but fast in a way that is completely unexpected when you are looking at something that small and soft-looking. One moment she was standing there, and the next moment her hand was wrapped around my wrist. My wrist. The one attached to the hand I had just slapped her with. Her fingers dug in, and I felt my bones compress in a way that was immediately intensely uncomfortable. I tried to pull away. This was instinct, you understand. When something grabs you, you pull away. Basic survival response shared across most species, except my arm did not move. At all. This human female, this tiny woman who weighed maybe 60 kilograms soaking wet, had locked my wrist in place like it was bolted to a bulkhead. Let go, inmate, I said, trying to sound authoritative. It came out slightly higher pitched than I intended. She did not let go. Instead, she stepped in closer, inside my reach, and her other hand came up fast. Very fast. Her palm struck the underside of my elbow, hyperextending the joint. Pain shot up my arm, the kind of bright electric pain that makes your vision blur at the edges. I swung at her with my free hand. Big looping punch, lots of power behind it. Should have connected solidly with her head, would have ended this immediately. She ducked under it. Just dropped maybe 15 centimeters and my fist sailed over her head, hitting nothing but air. The momentum spun me slightly off balance. That was when she kicked me. Not a big dramatic kick. Not some flashy spinning nonsense. Just a simple, brutally efficient strike to the side of my knee. I heard something pop. Not break, thankfully, but definitely pop in a way that knees are not supposed to pop. My leg buckled. I was still standing, barely, trying to process what was happening. This was not following the script. Humans were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to be easy to intimidate. They were supposed to fold immediately when faced with superior size and strength. Kira Torres did not get the memo. She released my wrist, finally, but only because she needed both hands for what came next. She grabbed my uniform front, twisted her hips and pulled. It was a throwing technique, I realized later. Some sort of martial practice from Earth. In the moment, all I knew was that the floor was suddenly rushing up to meet my face. I hit hard. The air exploded out of my lungs in a deeply undignified whoosh. My vision went sparkly around the edges. Somewhere in the background I could hear other inmates shouting, some cheering, the scrape of chairs as people backed away to give us more room. I tried to get up. I really did. Got my hands under me, started to push. Then Kira's knee pressed down on my back, right between my shoulder blades, pinning me flat. How much did this woman weigh? It felt like someone had parked a cargo loader on my spine. "Stay down," she said. Her voice was not even strained, she was not breathing hard. She sounded like she was giving casual advice about the weather. My training kicked in. Sort of. I thrashed, trying to throw her off. She shifted her weight and suddenly I could not move at all. One of her hands grabbed my left arm, twisting it up behind my back at an angle that made my shoulders scream in protest. Not quite dislocated, but close, very, very close. I said, "Stay down." The cafeteria was chaos now, inmates shouting, some laughing. I could hear the emergency klaxon starting to wail, which meant someone had triggered the alert for enforcer assistance. Help was coming. I just had to wait, just had to endure this temporary humiliation until backup arrived and restrained this insane human. I counted seconds in my head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Kira had not moved. Still kneeling on my back. Still controlling my arm. Still completely infuriatingly calm. 10 seconds. 11. 12. My face was pressed against the cold cafeteria floor. I could see food scraps, some unidentifiable liquid, the base of a table leg. This was my view now. This was my life. An excellent enforcer of the Thexian Concordat, face down in cafeteria filth, immobilized by someone a third my mass. 15 seconds. 16. 17. Where was backup? How long does it take to respond to an emergency alert? 18. 19. 20. Finally, I heard boots pounding down the corridor. Multiple sets. Security was arriving. 20 seconds. From slap to floor to complete humiliation. 20 seconds was all it took for Kira Torres to completely destroy my reputation, my dignity, and quite possibly my knee cartilage, and she still had not broken a sweat. You know, I had walked across this cafeteria floor thousands of times during my tenure at Station Vermilion 7. I had mopped it, inspected it, and filed maintenance reports about the questionable staining in the northwest corner. But I had never, not once, viewed it from this particular angle, ground level, face pressed against the tiles level. It was not an improvement. There was a small crack near my left eye, maybe 2 centimeters long, spider webbing out from some ancient impact point. A piece of what might have been vegetable matter or possibly mineral supplement was lodged in the grout line. The smell was a combination of industrial cleaner and despair, mostly despair. I could hear everything with crystal clarity from down here. The scraping of chairs, the excited chatter of inmates in at least 4 different languages. Someone was laughing, a high-pitched Belvaron wheeze that went on way too long. Another inmate was apparently taking bets on what would happen next. The odds were not in my favor. Kira's knee remained firmly planted between my shoulder blades. My arm was still twisted at that not quite dislocated angle. Every time I tried to shift my weight, even slightly, she adjusted her grip and the pressure increased. It was like being held down by a machine, something that calculated optimal force and applied it without emotion or effort. The security team burst through the cafeteria entrance. I recognized the footsteps. Us. The Belvaran intake officer. Jekina, a Vexilian female with more combat training than the rest of us combined. And Vex, of course. Vex, who had warned me. Vex, whose advice I had ignored. Vex, who was probably experiencing several conflicting emotions right now. Freeze. Everyone stays exactly where they are. That was Jekina, her voice carrying that sharp edge of authority that actually worked. Unlike my voice, which had failed me. While I was on the floor, I tried to speak, to explain that I was the victim here, that this inmate had assaulted an enforcer. What came out was more of a wheeze, because, again, knee on spine. The human female is restraining Enforcer Kriegvar, Thas announced, which was both accurate and deeply unnecessary. Everyone could see that. Everyone in the entire cafeteria was seeing that. Some were recording it on personal devices, which was definitely against regulations, not that anyone seemed to care right now. Jekina approached carefully, her stunner drawn. Inmate Torres, release the enforcer and step back with your hands visible. To my absolute shock, Kira complied immediately. The pressure on my back vanished. My arm was released, gently even, lowered back to my side with what almost felt like care. She stood up, took 3 steps backward, and raised both hands to shoulder-height, palms forward. Complying with instructions, she said calmly. I lay there for another moment trying to remember how breathing worked and whether my spine was supposed to feel like this. Eventually, with more effort than I care to admit, I pushed myself up to my hands and knees, then slowly, painfully stood. My knee immediately reminded me of that popping sound by sending a sharp spike of pain up my leg. I wobbled. Actually wobbled. Vex caught my arm, steadying me. His compound eyes were absolutely unreadable, but I swear I could feel judgment radiating from his entire insectoid body. Jackenna kept her stunner trained on Kira, while Foss moved through the crowd of inmates. I need witness statements. What happened here? An older Krothari male raised one of his many limbs. The enforcer struck the human female without provocation. She defended herself. It was over in approximately 20 seconds. 15 seconds, another inmate corrected. I counted. 20, someone else insisted. Definitely 20. So now they were arguing about the exact duration of my humiliation. Wonderful. Fantastic. This day just kept improving. A minority female, all 4 of her eyes blinking in sequence, added her testimony. The enforcer has been harassing inmate Torres for 9 days. Reduced meal portions, verbal abuse, unnecessary cell inspections. Today he invaded her personal space during meal period. She cited regulations. He became aggressive. Foss was recording all of this on his data pad. Jackenna glanced at me, then at Kira, then back at me. Her expression was professionally neutral, but I could read the subtext. The subtext was, "You idiot." Medical assessment needed for Enforcer Kriegvar, Jackenna said into her comm unit. Non-emergency, but priority response. Non-emergency. I had just been taken down by an inmate and it was classified as non-emergency. My career was on fire, and someone had decided it was not worth rushing to extinguish it. The medical technician arrived within minutes. A Hivarian, naturally, because Hivarians loved finding new and interesting injuries to document. He scanned my knee with his medical analyzer, made disapproving clicking sounds with his tongue, scanned my shoulder, more clicking sounds, then checked my vitals. Hyperextended knee, minor ligament strain. Shoulder joint stressed but not dislocated. Bruised ribs, likely from impact with floor. Elevated blood pressure and heart rate, though that is probably emotional rather than physical trauma. He said that last part, a little too loudly. Treatment recommendations? Jackenna asked. Anti-inflammatory injection, compression support for the knee, light duty for 5 to 7 days. Also, perhaps avoid physical confrontations with humans from high-gravity worlds. Just a suggestion. Everyone within earshot was definitely not laughing. Definitely not. That weird wheezing sound was probably just the ventilation system. Jackenna turned to Kira, who had not moved from her position, hands still raised, expression still maddeningly calm. Inmate Torres, explain your actions. Kira lowered her hands slowly. Enforcer Kriegvar struck me without legal justification. I defended myself using minimum necessary force to neutralize the threat and prevent further assault. I restrained him until proper authorities arrived. I then complied immediately with security instructions. Minimum necessary force. That was minimum. What did maximum look like? I want her charged with assaulting an enforcer, I said. My voice came out angrier than I intended, probably because my entire body hurt and my pride was somewhere underneath the nearest table. Jackenna looked at me. Really looked at me. Kriegvar, there are 60 witnesses and full security camera coverage. I suggest we review the footage before filing any formal charges. That was when I knew. I knew that I was not getting justice here. I was getting consequences. Mine, not Kira's. The medical tech finished wrapping my knee. You should sit down, enforcer. Take weight off that leg. I sat on the floor. Again. Because standing was overrated anyway. Kira Torres stood there, a tiny cut on her lip the only evidence that anything had happened, and waited for whatever came next. Commander Pelix was not someone you wanted reviewing footage of your worst professional moments. She was a Varnesh, which meant she had 4 arms, excellent multitasking capabilities, and absolutely zero tolerance for nonsense. Her office smelled like the mineral supplements her species consumed, and the walls were covered with commendations, incident reports, and one very prominent poster reminding everyone that professionalism is not optional. I sat in the chair across from her desk, my knee throbbing despite the anti-inflammatory injection. Jacquena stood to my right. Kira Torres stood to my left, still in her gray jumpsuit, still maddeningly composed. Helix had watched the security footage 3 times. 3 complete times, from 4 different camera angles. Each replay was a fresh new nightmare for me. The slap looked worse from above. The throw looked more brutal from the side angle. My undignified wheezing was crystal clear in the audio feed. Enforcer Kriegvar, Pelix said, her primary arms folded across her chest while her secondary arms operated the display controls. Would you like to revise your initial statement that you were, and I quote, viciously attacked without provocation? I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing remotely helpful came out. Pelix did not wait for my answer. She pulled up another file, this one with official Concordat seals all over it. After this incident, I took the liberty of actually reading inmate Torres's complete file, not just the intake summary, the complete file. Oh no. Kira Torres, human female, age 28 standard years, former member of Earth's Marine Corps, served for 8 years, specialized training in close quarters combat, hand-to-hand techniques, and something called, let me get this right, advanced combatives instruction. She was certified to train other soldiers in unarmed combat. Pelix looked up from the display. She taught people how to fight, Kriegver, professionally, for years. My stomach, which had already been residing somewhere near my feet, dropped through the floor and possibly into the lower decks. Furthermore, Pelix continued, clearly enjoying this now, humans are from a planet with gravity approximately 1.3 times standard Concordat baseline. Their bone density is significantly higher. Their muscle fiber composition is adapted for sustained high-intensity activity. They are, effectively, naturally stronger than their size would indicate. Vix had tried to tell me. The Krathari had literally tried to warn me about humans being from a death world. I had laughed at him. Had actually laughed. After her military service, Torres worked as a private security contractor before attempting independent cargo operations, which is how she ended up here on falsified documentation charges. Pelix closed the file. So to summarize, you harassed, verbally abused, and then physically struck a trained combat specialist who was quietly serving her detention time without incident. When she put it that way, it sounded really bad. Commander, I was attempting to maintain discipline and order. I tried. By slapping an inmate in front of 60 witnesses, I had no response to that. None whatsoever. Alex turned to Kira. Inmate Torres, do you wish to file a formal complaint against Enforcer Kriegvar? Kira was quiet for a moment. Then she shook her head. No, Commander. I think he has learned his lesson. The humiliation of that statement, the casual mercy of it hurt worse than my knee. However, Pelix said, I am filing a formal reprimand in your record, Kriegvar. You are being reassigned to inventory management, effective immediately. You will have no direct inmate contact for the remainder of your time on this station. Dismissed. I limped out of that office, feeling like I had been fed through a waste processor. The news spread through Station Vermilion 7 faster than a hull breach alarm. By evening shift, everyone knew, the enforcer who got dropped by the tiny human. The guard who learned the hard way, that size is not everything, that idiot Kriegvar. My first shift in inventory management was the next day. I arrived early, hoping to avoid the stairs. It did not work. The route to the inventory bay took me past cell block 7, past the common areas, past the cafeteria where it had all happened. Inmates stared. Some whispered. A few nodded respectfully, but not at me. They were looking past me, toward the cell blocks, toward wherever Kira Torres was at that moment. When I passed the recreation area, I saw something that made me stop. Inmates were exercising differently now, doing those same bodyweight movements I had seen Kira doing. Push-ups, squats, planks, other positions I did not have names for. A Minari was attempting a pull-up on the equipment bar, all 4 eyes squinted in concentration. They were copying her, learning from her. The human who had taken down an enforcer in 20 seconds had become the most respected inmate in the facility. Not through violence or intimidation or threats, through competence. I continued to inventory management, where I would be counting supply crates and filing equipment requests. Alone, away from everyone, which was exactly what I deserved. My reputation was not just damaged, it was obliterated, vaporized, scattered across the station like debris from a failed docking procedure. And the worst part, the absolute worst part, was that it was entirely my own fault. Inventory management, it turns out, is incredibly boring. Thrilling revelation. I know. You spend your days scanning crates, updating databases, and verifying that yes, we do in fact have 17,000 units of meal supplement powder in Storage Bay 3. Riveting stuff, really using my enforcer training to its fullest potential here. My knee healed over the next 3 weeks. The physical pain faded. The emotional damage, however, that stuck around like a stubborn stain on a uniform. Every time I walked through the station, I felt the weight of everyone's awareness. The story had not died down. If anything, it had grown. Somehow, in the retelling, the fight had lasted 30 seconds instead of 20, and Kira had thrown me through a table. Neither was true, but truth is apparently optional when you are station gossip. I saw her occasionally, Kira Torres, the human who had permanently altered my understanding of the universe. She was always polite when our paths crossed. A small nod of acknowledgement, nothing more. She did not gloat, did not mock, just continued her quiet routine like nothing had happened. That somehow made it worse. The other inmates treated her with a respect I had never managed to earn in 6 cycles of service. She had not demanded it, had not threatened anyone, had not established dominance through intimidation. She had simply demonstrated capability when pushed, and everyone had taken note. Funny how that works. I started actually reading the species briefings during my downtime. The human sections were fascinating in a horrifying sort of way. Earth, classified as a Class 12 death world. Humanity evolved competing with apex predators, surviving climate extremes, developing endurance hunting techniques that involved literally chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They were persistently, aggressively, stubbornly alive in ways that most species never had to be, and we had invited them into the galactic community, given them ships, trade agreements, access to technology. What could possibly go wrong, right? 60 cycles into her detention sentence, Kira's case finally went before a magistrate. I was not present, but I heard about the outcome. The charges were reduced: falsified documentation, first offense, mitigating circumstances involving corrupted navigation data that technically was not her fault. She was released with time served and a fine she had apparently already paid. I saw her on her departure day. She was in the processing area, collecting her personal effects, signing release documents. Her ship had been returned, or at least whatever was left of it after impound fees and maintenance costs. She was wearing civilian clothes now, dark pants, a jacket with patches I did not recognize, boots that looked like they had walked across several continents. Our eyes met across the processing area. She paused. Then she walked over. Here it comes, I thought. The final humiliation. Some cutting remark about how I should pick on someone my own size, or maybe just a reminder that she had taken me down without breaking a sweat. Instead, she extended her hand. A human gesture. A peace offering. No hard feelings, Krigvar. You were just doing your job. Well, mostly. I stared at her hand. Then, carefully, I shook it. Her grip was firm. Very firm. My wrist bones remembered that grip very well. For what it is worth, I said slowly, I am sorry, for the harassment, for the slap, for being in general a complete idiot. She smiled. A real smile this time, not that predator grin from the cafeteria. We all make mistakes. The important thing is learning from them. Then she left. Just walked out of Station Vermilion 7, back to whatever life awaited her in the wider galaxy. I never saw her again, but I think about that day constantly. About assumptions. About underestimating people based on appearance, about how the universe is full of species we barely understand, with capabilities we have not begun to appreciate. Earth is one planet among billions, and humans are one species among thousands. And yet, they climbed out of a gravity well that should have kept them grounded. They built ships that crossed the stars, They survived conditions that would have killed softer species. They developed combat techniques, refined over thousands of years of conflict, and then they joined the Concordat and started hauling cargo, running businesses and quietly going about their lives like they had not brought something fundamentally dangerous to the galactic community. Something adaptable. Something determined. Something that hits back when you push it. I am Kriegvar of the 3rd Talon, inventory specialist for Station Vermilion 7, and I learned an important lesson from a human female barely tall enough to reach my chest. Never, ever underestimate the species from the Death World. They have been surviving impossible odds since before we even knew they existed. And if you are stupid enough to start a fight with one, well, you should probably make sure you can finish it. Because they absolutely will. Trust me on this. I have the medical reports to prove it.